start the meeting. I'm not sure if Bob's gonna make it or not. I didn't hear, that he was, so. As you noticed, nobody's kind enough to get something together in regard to the scenic view shed overlay district and send it out to all of us. And that's the first thing we'll cover this morning. I know Chuck had and I also like to thank Sean and Kim for sending the information out to the committee members ahead of time too, so they had a chance to review different things before we had our meeting today. Getting back to the scenic view shed overlay district, I know you had a comment in regard to that, Chuck, so do you want to bring that up? And
Yeah, as I had said in my email, I think the concept that Doug put together is certainly something that is going in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. I guess the only thing I was scratching my head on was the how we apply the 1 acre minimum lot size in a situation where we have a conservation subdivision. That you would wind up with, well, wouldn't make sense to have a conservation subdivision with 1 acre lots. Well, it essentially would become a conventional
Yeah.
subdivision. Yeah. So really the possibility of having a conservation subdivision in the SVO would be rather difficult. So I don't know if that's what we want to prevent or control, but I don't know your thoughts on that, Doug.
Yeah, I'm glad, it's a great question, but I thought that was exactly the intent of what you guys were looking to do, to prevent the townhouses, to prevent those things that could be done with a conservation subdivision. So that's why that was specifically called out, that in the, that's D1 on this density and minimum lot size. The minimum lot size in the SVO district is 1 acre. In the SVO district, the use of conservation subdivisions 174.16 shall not result in a lot smaller than 1 acre. And the land area defined as part of the SVO district shall be identified as a primary or priority conservation asset. So again, so yes, in the SVO, in the purple area on the map, essentially south of 5 and 20, you would not essentially be able to use conservation subdivision in a way that resulted in a lot size smaller than 1 acre. Is the way this is intendedly written at this point, because I thought that was kind of the direction you guys wanted to go.
unless someone brought a proposal to the town planning board, and then the town planning board, if they thought it was reasonable or acceptable, they could modify that.
No, in this particular case, they would need a variance.
Okay, a variance, so, okay, so it'd have to go to the ZBA,
Mhm.
okay?
I think I'm going the way John is. And I'm guessing, Chuck, you're kind of feeling that way, that I believe we could tastefully have conservation subdivision in the purple area. And again, a lot of it depends on where and a lot of factors, but I think we should leave that opportunity open for a conservation subdivision.
But you can do it the way it's written. It's just the minimum lot size would be 1 acre the way it's written.
Well, again, that's what I'm talking about. I don't think we need to hold to the 1 acre lot size if it's a conservation subdivision. The whole purpose is to conserve land and be more economical as far as the infrastructure goes.
But with the conservation subdivision, you're gonna have cluster housing. Which,
Again, if they're disguised,
pardon me?
if they're disguised or landscaped enough, or they're in the woods, maybe it doesn't make any difference. I don't know.
I think that's. I don't agree with that. I don't like the idea of cluster housing.
Okay.
Cluster housing doesn't manage the development like a 1 acre minimum lot size would.
Cluster housing in the sense, John, of, you know, condominiums joined together. You're talking about that, or just single family homes on half acre lots?
Smaller
So
lots.
I think you could have with the conservation subdivision, and Doug, you can correct me if I interpret it incorrectly. But if someone were to buy
100 acres as an example. Round numbers, if 50 of those acres were developable, and I know there's some adjustment that needs to be made there. They, in theory, could have 50 acres of developable property that they could go and build cluster homes such as the Murlock property. If I interpret it correctly, and I think I do.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
Now, there is some mathematical calculation that has to be done, but
yeah, it's correct.
approximately, that's what it would be.
You'd have to determine the base density. And then you have that number of lots or that number of homes, and then you'd apply that to the 50 acres.
So in just taking that a step farther, you could realistically, you could put those 50 houses on 25 acres
Right.
and conserve the rest of it and cluster them.
Again, it would depend on where.
And I think, again, I don't want to reference it too often, but going back to the strategic planning, I get the sense that people wanted to conserve the natural resources. And I believe the best way to conserve the natural resources is to have a minimum lot size. Otherwise, you're going to end up having cluster developments in the future, which is particularly important, I think.
Well, cluster conserves resources also, but do you want the resources all in areas that are essentially environmentally sensitive, or do you just want to take it and spread it over 1 acre lots and have the conservation occur on private property that essentially is in fee simple?
Well, I think that the answer to that, Chuck, is that you're only going to be able to break it up into 1 acre lots after this meeting, or after it's approved, with the intention of building a home on every 1 acre lot. And I think the reality of that, a developer coming in and wanting to do that is very slim. Not to say it couldn't be done.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we could put up some very expensive and elaborate homes on a 1 acre lot, and a developer might want to go and sell, pick a number, $10 million homes on a 10 acre lot. I don't think the likelihood of that would be very strong. I think more realistically, you're going to have individual families that are going to want to build homes in on exclusive properties.
Mhm.
We can take a
So-
step back to number D here, the the top here. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page with this for a quick second and then come back to this conversation. So, and this is where section D, site development standards, excuse me, sorry, to the extent possible, it says any subdivision of land in the SVO district shall not create a new lot unless all parcels are at least 1 acre in size, or the planning board finds a lessening of degree of nonconformity for the combination of pre-existing non-conforming lots. Let me just talk about that for a quick second. So the concern there was, let's say hypothetically, somebody buys 2 lots in the RLD and they want to do a lot line adjustment and combine them, but they're still smaller than an acre. This section of code, because it's in the purple area, would prohibit that from happening had we not put that piece in there. So it gives the planning board actually the authorization to go ahead and do that. I know that currently that's an administrative decision, but this would actually allow the planning board to combine those lots into a lot that's smaller than 1 acre in this particular case, anywhere in the scenic view shed overlay. And then to the extent possible, the planning board of the town of Canandaigua shall be authorized to grant subdivision and development of land in the SVO district, provided the following standards are met. And then that's where it goes into the 1 acre lot size. So there's actually the 2 pieces in that first section. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of. So the one thing that does is it doesn't necessarily need a variance at that point, because that gives the planning board the authority to do that.
In that case.
In that case, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. But in the other case, right, for the conservation subdivision, that particular case, the way that is currently written, they would need a variance for that,
Anything smaller than an acre lot.
for the creation of a new lot, because it's a subdivision, it's a
Yeah.
creation of a new lot.
So how's the committee want to move forward with this? So we can, basically get it moving forward.
So So in summary, Doug, what I'm thinking I hear you say is that there is a possibility that a developer could build on less than 1 acre lots if he got a variance from the zoning board.
Right,
So
so
then we'd have 5 people making an informed decision on whether they thought that was an appropriate use of the land in that particular case or not.
you would have, right, on that particular case, for a developer that's proposing, for instance, townhomes in a particular area, they would need a variance. I mean, we could certainly put something in here that, you know, would spell out the planning board providing guidance or direction or something or other like that. You know, I'd have to wordsmith that a little bit, but, you know, that way you have both the planning board and the zoning board weighing in on it before authorization would be granted.
Well, not to be parochial to the planning board, but essentially, if they go for a variance, I guess the justification for the variance would be that we want to reduce the lot size because we can conserve more
Right.
property on the lot.
Correct.
Which is essentially what the planning board does with the conservation subdivision.
Correct.
So you're sort of taking the approval away from the planning board and giving it to the zoning ZBA to grant them smaller lots. Which I think you're gonna wind up getting awfully confused when we try to apply the new conservation subdivision regulations to this, or this to that, those regulations. Another thing, are we creating a market or a property or a house or a lot that maybe the current builder's market doesn't want to build? I mean, the 1 acre lots, I mean, that's a $500,000 house plus. And is that something that we're creating markets for?
Well,
I don't know that we would be creating that market. I mean, you look at what's happened here, we still have single family houses being built, but the majority of what's being built are townhouses,
Clusters.
4s, 3s, 2s, whatever,
Mhm.
because of demographic change, not because of any effort on the part of the town to change codes or whatever. So, well, they're going to dictate what happens in the future. Is it going to swing back to majority wanting single family homes on a 1 acre lot or whatever type lot? Or is it going to stay the way it is? The population is aging. It seems to be that's what's driving us towards these,
Smaller,
quad units or 4 in a row.
one level, single story. Yeah.
I have the data, but I unfortunately left it upstairs. Since 2011, the town of Canandaigua on average has issued building permits for somewhere between 15 and 20 new single family homes per year. Versus you're talking about hundreds of permits have been issued for apartments, townhomes, all those types of things. So, I mean, that's clearly where the market is, the
Mhm.
apartments, townhomes, those sorts of things. And what this would do is this would say, okay, in this purple area, we're gonna make it difficult to build an apartment or townhome, essentially.
Won't economics take care of that? The cost of the land would preclude a developer doing some kind of a cluster in the,
Well,
Well,
I can only tell you. from
That's the
my
only way he gets his
perspective,
money back.
I have researched a few different properties to purchase, to develop housing on. And the one restricting factor that I have found in my own solicitation is that the 1 acre lots prohibits a cost-effective development. It's not the economics that are driving that, it is the zoning that is driving that.
okay, I'm not sure I'm grasping.
Okay.
I think you and I are agreeing, but maybe not.
No, I don't think we are.
Okay,
You think the economics is going to drive the decision by the developer?
well, if I'm a developer and I'm looking at a minimum of 1 acre lots,
Yes.
it's gonna be damn expensive as far as the infrastructure
That's right.
goes.
That's right.
So
As
The
an
cost
example,
of-
and I'll be specific, I looked at the farm on Middle Cheshire that went for sale on the west side of the road. The guy that had the bulls there and he had the barn there and he had it up for sale.
Okay, that's not in the purple area.
Just, no, I'm just giving you an example though of the mindset, which had an SCR1 attached to it.
Mhm.
To me, it didn't work. The math didn't work. The
But you-
economics didn't work because it was zoned a 1 acre
Yeah,
lot.
that you also had
So-
in the back pocket
So it
of
was a zoning.
Hobson. You
It
could
was
have,
a zoning that affected the decision, not the economics of the situation.
but perhaps if you availed yourself of the conservation subdivision, it would have made economic sense.
Potentially.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
At that
so
point in time,
Yeah.
that wasn't available, so.
conservation
consideration.
subdivision's been around forever.
well, I could.
We,
have
we
done
just
it.
revised it.
Yes.
it-
Well,
it's-
So maybe I could have done. but
Yeah.
I did not.
And that would have been the
Because it's
smart
own-
economic way for a developer to,
And we're talking about something, we're really discussing something where between the SCR1 and the RLD, it probably represents 80 or 90% of the purple shaded area, which has a 1 acre lot minimum size regardless.
okay. From Wells Curtis
And
down
on the
is
RLD.
RR3, and there's no utilities. Or very little sewer and water south of there. So that's a non-issue, I think, in there. The issue is here.
Which is
Not,
mostly
not,
SCR.
not Middle Cheshire Road, where you've got the option of conservation subdivision and or 1 acre lots. And that's where the town in zoning it as an SCR, Southern Corridor Residential District, is where the town designed long ago where growth was supposed to go, where marginal farmland level serviced with sewer and water, mostly sewer. That's where growth was identified to be.
But to your point, Tom, with market, the market nowadays isn't really going after that area. It's more the dense of like uptown.
Which according to our strategic plan, where we wanted the growth to occur anyways. One of the bullets, actually it's 3 of the bullets, but we wanted to drive the development to the areas that have the services to meet the needs of that area.
And we want to prevent the expansion of that kind of dense development that we see in Liquid Meadows and areas like that. I agree.
Well, with these regs, you will discourage conservation subdivisions and probably discourage development entirely because people will just say, "Oh, I'm not gonna touch that land, I'm not gonna do anything with it, because what my yield will be out of it would not justify the expense of going through the motions." So if that's what we want, that's what you'll get.
Possibility. The thing is though, that some of the things we've seen happening over the past few years, houses selling for 10-20% more than what they're assessed for. I mean, to me, it's very difficult to predict what the future is going to be because people have gotten used to elevated numbers and will it become in some form economically viable to do that? Because this is the only option. You got to spend a little more money. I think it's impossible to tell right now, but this would help prevent some of what we don't want to see in that area. Certainly, and guide it more towards the uptown area where we want to see that kind of growth.
So you don't want to see any more Lakewood Meadows or anything to that effect. That's essentially.
I mean, that was, you know, that Waterford Point and Lakewood Meadows were kind of the, I don't know if it's straw or what, but that's what PDR was put on Weifels Farm was designed to do, is to limit that growth.
Yeah.
Initiating the SCR1 zoning district and that PDR would put a line in the sand and say, okay, north of that, we got this, we don't want it south of here. they were both about the same era, and about the same age, so.
When was the last time the town rezoned? Was before you were in the planning board, wasn't it, Terry?
A couple of weeks ago,
Yeah,
we
we
did
did.
form-based code.
No, but I mean, SCR was set up way back when, right? Before us. Yeah,
And that, around that time, 2000,
Yeah.
2005.
okay.
It was fairly new when I came to the planning board, I know.
And it sort of been, and then the PDR came about the same time with Gary Whitefield's place, yeah.
I was just looking at the map up there, just so we can talk about a couple of examples. So a lot of Lakewood Meadows is not in the purple area. Like section 9 is, that would be like Riley's Run, that area, but a lot of it's not. So that portion of Lakewood Meadows, that could still exist, but I tell you one that is in that purple area, just as an example, is RSM.
Mhm.
So like, for instance, RSM, they could build up these smaller lots currently under conservation subdivision, but if this was in place, they would have to have 1 acre lots.
They've already got approval.
If they were to build what they currently have approval
Approval.
for.
Yeah.
They
If
come in
they
with
came
something
back
new.
and were to change it, they would have to meet the
Okay.
whatever
If this was on
regulations.
the books.
If that was in place.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
I didn't realize that Riley's Run was in the purple area, but if anybody's driven down there, you can't, at least where I have been, you can't see it from the lake, even though it's in the purple area, because
Did you say Riley's Run was mostly in it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
mostly is in it.
anybody been, that's a loop,
It's,
I don't think you can see the lake,
Oh, you see the lake
no,
from the backyards.
Yeah, some of
Okay,
it is.
well, maybe with the leaves off, but
Yeah,
I,
Riley's Run, when you start that, you
Maybe I'm thinking
white
another
left
street.
and make that right on Riley's Run when you're coming around that bend.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that area up there, but when you get down.
You-
no, you can't.
no, I know, so a very
Lake,
small
you
part
see
of
it, right,
where it drops
yeah.
down off for that loop, maybe,
But
but it-
even that.
even then, it's certainly not
trees,
offensive unless they're all ash trees, which,
Yeah, because I drove up there the other day and I didn't see anything.
No.
you know. I wasn't
No,
looking the
there's-
whole way, but I couldn't see the lake.
there's no view shed from the lake there.
So getting back to what Doug sent out, what changes need to be made or deleted or?
I
As
think
far
it's,
as the comp plan, the 5 goals, do these meld with this is what we're proposing here, jive up? I know John has said that it complies or it approaches 3 of the goals
the 5 goals for 2022.
for 2022.
I agree with the 3.
Mhm. So I guess we could say it's in conformance or not conformance, but along the line of what we're looking for in terms of our.
You want me to just
In
read those to
particular,
you?
Chuck,
Do you have them there?
Yeah.
Do you want me to
bullet
read them?
3,
Uh-huh.
it says promote housing and development growth within identified growth nodes and discourage development in environmentally sensitive areas. Revise ordinances to achieve this goal. As needed to achieve this goal.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that one speaks the most directly to this particular issue. But I think most all of them do, because investing in construction of roads, sidewalks, and bike lanes, I mean, again, I would think we'd want to invest the public dollars into those areas where we can most effectively construct those things. And we would most effectively construct those things in the high-density developments.
absolutely.
The second one is permanently protect lands with natural resource significance and support recreation on protected lands. The first is encourage continued agricultural use of viable farmland. Discourage development of those parcels by directing developers to more appropriate locations in the town. And then the other one is supporting development of affordable housing options.
Wouldn't promote affordable housing too.
Right, I think everybody's agreement not to, this isn't the
Not
area.
that, I'm not saying we have to meet all 5 goals. no.
It does support affordable housing.
We're shifting it up north.
That's assuming, yeah,
You're shifting the
Or it's
growth
more
mode
affordable,
up
yeah.
north.
Yeah. Well, I say let's run up the flagpole and, it's certainly a concept that it's new and different. I sense within this group that there seems to be some people who are promoting it. So, yeah, that's.
Can I ask another question, Doug? Are you familiar with any of the other communities that are lakeside that have initiated any type of language such as this into their zoning?
So that's the challenge. Actually, I was just met last week with the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association executive director, and my takeaway from that conversation was we're kind of the leaders in the things that we're doing by a lot.
Yeah.
Gorham has some language, and she actually happened to be a town resident of the town of Gorham, and I've looked at some of Gorham's stuff in the past. They have some language relative to like shoreline specific protection and what you can or can't do. They actually have a viewing piece. The way that they do their shoreline guidelines is different than ours, where you actually have to have a natural buffer area. So it's a little bit different than this. It has a different, so specifically to answer your question, no.
Well, so when you say we're the leaders, does that generally mean that, the neighboring communities that are lakeside, lake frontage, tend to follow what we do?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we set a precedent here, and I think this is pretty innovative, groundbreaking, but generally, if we set a precedent like this, or we set some ordinances like this, they tend to follow what we do.
A lot of times, yeah.
I think an example, John, would be the septic law.
Mhm.
I mean, the town, I believe we were the first ones to pass that, and have they all passed it now?
Not all of them, but most of them have.
I mean, we're inspecting on transfer, we're inspecting within X number of feet of lake depths.
Right.
So it trickles down maybe very slowly, but
And
That's a
most of those other neighboring communities aren't going to have high density development, generally speaking anyways.
oh, there's a lot of high density on the east side.
Born, there was-
Yeah, I mean, take.
Even South Bristol with the condos. I mean, I know
Yeah.
they've been there a while, but that's exactly what this would prevent from happening.
So what's the next step, Gary? If we endorse this in its draft form, does it go to the various boards and committees for review, or is
It'll
it
go
go?
through the committees to review,
Mhm.
and then it'll go to the town board to establish a public hearing, and then, determination made after that by board.
If I just could, there's one more thing, because this was, we touched on this, but we didn't talk a lot about it under section 3. So it's D3. I think it's the second page there, the top first full sentence. So it says the planning board shall consider and may require those elements identified in the town of Canandaigua Ridgeline Development Guidelines or Shoreline Development Guidelines. So anytime an application comes in the purple area, the planning board has to consider it, but they may require it.
Okay, as long as you brought it up, Doug, and first of all, this guy did a hell of a nice job for us. He simplified a monstrous pain in the ass. To
Turnaround.
Are you referring to me?
to a page and a half of something that puts back, unfortunately or fortunately, on Chuck's lap, some responsibility to make mature decisions depending on the situation. And I don't want to wordsmith, but on D3, the first sentence, by greatest extent feasible by locating buildings on natural topography. I would suggest, in the last thing of wordsmithing here, to take advantage of the natural topography or complementing, it's loosey-goosey, but
Sure.
it's obviously what they would do. But by
By
locating
buildings
on
that
natural.
complement natural topography. I just changed it on mine. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
not a-
that-
Under consideration. Yeah.
yeah, it's just a little smoother
Mhm.
idea of what we're trying to say.
Yep.
But thank you, Doug, again. And if anybody ever considers going away from the town manager form of government, I'm gonna move.
You're funny.
Anything else any of the committee members have to offer?
I have a question just procedurally. If the developer in planning work has if applicable, developer says, no, I want to use conservation subdivision. It just be a normal referral or not referral, but a variance.
Yeah.
To.
Yeah, so if somebody's
Normal
proposing a
procedure.
lot smaller than 1 acre in this, regardless if they're using conservation subdivision or not,
Regardless, it just comes over.
they would need a variance.
You ready for that, John?
I don't think we're gonna see many of them. Tom, but-
Probably not. Probably not.
I'm good.
But that's, again, that's why we have the systems in place.
Well,
Okay, I'll make a motion. We move this draft forward.
Motion made, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded, that we move this forward. Any discussion? Favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I see it, we'll see a lot of questions, but let the other eyeballs come up with their suggestions.
Thanks to Doug for getting this moving again. Great job. And I go back to what the surveys that the town has put out for many, many years and what people say they want to see in this area is more, keep the rural character, let's limit development, let's protect the lake, and hopefully this new regulation will help with all of that.
Yes, this is something that, different committees have worked on for years and stuff. At least now we've got a little something. That we can, go with. So, yeah, thanks Doug for doing it and for the quick turnaround so we could act on it today. We'll move to our second item for on the agenda. This one pertains to the changes to the conservation subdivisions. I think you recall that we had Lavella working on this. The county kicked back a lot of the different, or shouldn't say kickback, but sent us their responses to it. I think most of them, you've received information on that, on the responses back from the county and what they're moving forward with that work. Are all of them taken care of pretty well, Sean and Doug? What the county had to say, because it went through all the committees and everything. All right.
Yeah, so I guess, and I wanted to ask a question about this. So some of these things, like I'll use an example. The county was suggesting 5 years instead of 2 years. Well, that was based on, Shauna had looked into that, and that was based on one person's opinion.
Absolutely, and I think
A lot of them are. I don't know that this needs to be done, to be honest with you. We have a good conservation subdivision law on the books. And I mean, I guess what I would suggest is when you get to a point and you don't have anything pressing to work on, bring this back up, but
Yeah, that'll never happen.
Bring the chickens back.
I don't know if anybody feels different. I mean, we could take a look at whatever, but I mean, some of the stuff is like, okay, we have to, like on that farming thing, we have to regulate for 5 years. We had said 2 years. It has to have been active within the last 2, and the county wants to extend that to 5 years. So if at any point in time in the last year, the farm has been, or the parcel's been farmed, that would kick it into a whole conservation subdivision piece. Well, I guess I don't understand the logic between 2 and 5. The current law says 2.
Well, I would think in 5 years, being a farming background, that land won't be worth a lot, if you wait 5 years for it, it's gonna grow up to shrubs and stuff like that,
So
2 years I can understand.
I apologize. To your point, Doug, I mean, I was a little confused when I got this in the mail because I thought the town board had already approved the conservation subdivision. And now what we're talking about doing is modifying some of the language in it and going through this whole process all over again, right? And to your point, looks like it was kind of wordsmithing to me and maybe 2 versus 5. I mean, we were comfortable with 2, that's why we approved it.
We, with all due respect to the county, these are suggestions.
So the modifications that were made in red are suggestions that were initiated by the county?
Absolutely.
I thought some of them were initiated by Labella also.
Meaning, I mean, they took the comments and, I mean, they are, it is opinion based.
Right, because I saw that the Labella document came through with this, and I noticed there were some things on the Labella document that I thought were incorporated into this red line version, but I mean, to Doug's point, I thought it was all kind of nickel and dime stuff.
And again, we got way too much into the weeds here, whether it's farming. But a question I had, maybe Shauna.
Yeah.
When we talk about, one of the things they brought up was a stream corridor business. And clarify for me, a stream corridor as opposed to a stream setback. Because to me, a corridor is the distance from the setback on one side of the stream to the setback on the other side.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
It's
They're-
more of the
we're using them,
entirety versus
okay,
one
and
side.
right now is our rule 150 feet setback?
100.
100, okay.
That was just recently modified also, wasn't it, if I remember correctly?
Recently, as long as I know, it's been 100. I don't know when it was.
There was a
modified.
lot of discussion about extending it, but I think it ended up remaining what it currently is, 100.
Okay, good, because
Yeah,
there's
it's 100.
often, I was questioning is this a drainage ditch or is it a
That's
seasonal,
always- that always
seasonal
comes up.
stream or is it a real stream? And
It depends on who you ask.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Was there some conversation about that, the ones that were identified on the DEC map?
Yeah,
or
the
something?
class C.
Those are bona fide streams, but there are a lot of streams that are in culverts around
Right.
here.
I think Eric cleaned that up
Tried to, yeah.
when he,
One time say it had to be water flow through it 6 months out of the year or something like that. Do you consider that?
Yeah, there's
That
a
was a
section of
problem.
our code that
Yeah,
actually
you
go
says
with-
that.
I mean, how many roadside ditches are 6 months of the
so
year
then they
got
went to
water?
a defined class C
Right.
stream. If it is, then it's considered a blue line stream and you've got to apply the setbacks.
Since the town board has already approved it. If go back and try to reinvent the wheel, maybe some places.
We got other things that are, more pressing than this, and so we'll just put that to the bottom.
I think the minutes just reflect no further recommendations.
Then you bring it back and they can adjust it.
Absolutely. I think we haven't even had time to apply the new regs to anything that's coming yet. So there might be, just with the form-based code, there's gonna be some tweaking.
Few
I'm
questions that
sure,
arise,
yeah,
but
as we come up.
If
as
they
it-
can't be addressed and they require a change, then they can change. So.
Were they tardy in responding? Is that one of the reasons why this is coming out
They've
now?
been tardy over the years of responding to different things that I've been accustomed to anyways. I don't
Well, there
know.
was, they didn't have a quorum at the meeting and it just got, that was part of this issue. It got backed up. They were backed up.
You'll straighten that up.
We'll expect more.
You'll straighten that out.
I
Sean.
will straighten it out.
Gary, you're okay with the farm issue and so on?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think of you as the guardian angel of the farm.
Old McDonald?
Oh, that is something. That's a chicken.
I mean, we, the town is in love with farming, but as a economical or economic activity, it becomes less and less viable for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And
So everybody's in agreement, we don't need any vote or anything like that, or motion or anything, we'll just hold off on this for
Just-
whenever.
thank the town.
Let it
or
roll.
the- Thank the county for their comments.
Right.
This is a record.
Well, for our next.
Next meeting on the 20th, we're gonna have Bob DeCarlo here.
Bob will be here, so that will be great.
He's chair of the Agriculture Advisory Committee.
Okay.
He is a partner in the farming operation out there in Cooley Road, the Baba operation.
Mhm. So the intent would be, to please review the ag overlay.
Yep.
Document before the 20th.
Did you send that to us previously?
Yeah, you've gotten it multiple times. You actually, Kim sent it out Friday as well. Right, was that attachment?
Don't think
Wasn't.
so.
We've just
No,
seen it. We'll send it again.
please.
Yeah, if you send it out. Yeah, we'll send it one more time.
Seems so this works a lot better, doesn't it? They have whatever one is, work on for the next meeting, any amendments and writing or anything like that, so we send it out. to members so they can-
Oh, please, yes.
Regular meeting.
We do have a staff meeting in here at 10 that
It's actually
day.
published.
So do we want to
So it
move?
probably should be changed.
Do we want to keep it to
Yeah,
an hour?
it's
or are we
already,
gonna keep it to
it's
an hour?
actually already open.
We're doing that.
Yep.
No, that's perfect.
Right.
We keep it an hour.
We got November 1st also for. the
Okay,
overlay
so,
too, so
okay, so then
we
we'll
can
keep it
to an
here.
hour.
Okay.
That's agreeable with everybody.
Mhm.
For the meeting, she was wondering about keeping it an hour because they got a staff meeting in here that on the 20th also. And we also have the ag overlay for November 1st, so we can wrap it up in an hour on the 20th and. Problem with that? Okay.
Gary, let me ask you one more, and I don't mean to spring this on you all. I introduced at the town board meeting, I mentioned the possible creation of a local law for the Uptown Business Improvement District, and I'm working on that. Is that something that the ordinance committee wants to see, or should, it's more really, it's relative to the finances of Uptown? I can send it either to finance or planning public works, and we can just ship it onto the town board, or do you guys want to see that?
That's something that's one of the higher code,
Yeah, it requires a local law. Yeah,
they had that in the city for the bid.
yeah. And actually there's, I've been doing some research. There are, I think it's 11 towns in the state of New York that have business improvement districts, but there's some specific language that has to be included. It's allowed under general municipal law. It's allowed to be done and everything, but there's some specific language. And then you have to establish the district, and there has to be a district plan, which we have. It's the Uptown study essentially. You have to kind of spell out and everything. And then the thought being there that the town board would be the board of directors of the Uptown Business Improvement District. So it'd operate just like all of our other special districts.
And that would be paid for by the members of that special district.
Correct. Yeah. For the benefit that they get associated with that, predominantly business. I mean, obviously it's,
Yeah. I would think this would be something more appropriate for one of the other committees, finance or
yeah.
planning.
It's not really like zoning and that type of stuff. It's more about, the financial aspects, I would say. In particular, but
Finance committee, because not underground, so public works committee. does.
Yeah.
yeah.
So anything else anybody wants to bring up to today's meeting?
I was looking through some old emails and I saw an email from Doug. He had sort of had a hit list of items he'd like the ordinance committee to look at. I'm just trying to find out why we were talking here. Is there anything on there that's of any urgency?
You know, it's funny, I just made a list this morning. I wish I brought it down. Looking at some of the. some of the
Geniuses
things.
think alike.
Yeah.
He doesn't lag for getting us.
Oh,
Well, we have cemeteries, that's gonna be. on
Yes.
there.
Cemeteries, okay.
We have the ag
We
code.
have the
So
ag
there's the
code
ag
changes.
overlay and then the ag code. There's two relative to the ag. The ag committee would like to make some changes to their section of the town code that
Mhm.
relative to the establishment of the ag committee.
Those are fairly simple.
Yeah, some changes there.
Mhm.
You've got the ECB also as the actual similar language changing the E ECB.
I think on the ag code there, you're talking about the length, how many members and.
Right,
length
all
of
that
time.
stuff, right.
And I was thinking, I have to go back to my records and see, but the length of time for serve on that committee. Ray Henry and I are, basically, well, not basically, we're the two charter members so far still on it. But I think the five of us, we determined 5 at the time, and everybody got, X number of years, instead of going like one member get 5 years, one get 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. I think we all went, with a certain number of years to begin with, but I'm not exactly
Well,
sure
so-
why it's 2 years now.
No, so it's not 2 years. So they're 5-year terms, but they were staggered intentionally. So not everybody came up. But the 5-year terms, that's actually spelled out in state law. So that's the same as like the planning board and zoning board and everything else. So, and then they were intentionally staggered. So the initial term was shorter. And then when you get reappointed, it would be for the 5-year term.
But I did see in the minutes, I went back over the weekend and looked at them, because Jerry Jones, he was appointed for a 3-year term, I believe,
That was filling.
and then.
That was filling an
then a
unexpired
couple
term.
Others were for 2-year terms, but they were filling like.
They were all
Bob
filling,
Carlo, they
right.
were filling other
Yep,
people that,
yeah.
decided.
Yeah, so we actually have a record up in the clerk's office that shows every single appointed official in their term, 5-year term, and as they resign, and then filling it again.
Anything else anybody wants to discuss?
Just a quickie.
Sure.
I see everybody that wears glasses can't see because of these damn masks. When are we, did you pass a law that everybody has to be vaccinated?
No, we didn't pass that, but the CDC recommends when you're in a high transmission area that you wear masks indoors, unfortunately, so. yeah.
It's not gonna change for a while.
To a person? Oh, you broke you must have a good mask. I've gone through more damn masks and my glasses still fog up.
I'm
Uh,
the same thing.
Okay, never mind.
Thanks, Brad. Well, thanks for everybody coming today, and see you on the 20th.